Now we'll talk about the first chapter. See, yesterday what we have actually discussed is that I gave you the introduction about what is a database and what is an SQL and what are the different types of databases that we have, and what are the different types of SQL. Basically, what are the different DDL statements and what are the different DML statements. And we talked about also how to create a simple table and how to add the data to the existing table. Now we are actually learning about the data retrieval language, how to read the data from a table, using this. So let's say first thing is about the HR schema. So we have already discussed yesterday. We are going to use the HR schema for learning the select statements. That is basically for retrieving the data from all these things and all. HR schema. Let's say we are going to use the employees table for our querying, and you need to understand this naming convention and then the list of columns that we use. Employees, let's say jobs table, and we also use a departments table using this departments table. So these are all the three tables which we use in this. Let's talk about the first one. Now the first chapter is completely talks about how to write the basic select statements. How we use it. So let's say basic select statements. So basically the first thing is that we are going to understand about how to read the data from this table. So before we start with it, you need to know the structure of, yes, I hope everybody can hear me. Is there any problem in hearing me? Yes, Nitin, I don't know like whether you can hear me or not. I think everybody can hear me, right? Is all of you can hear me? Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, before we start with the reading of the data, so we have an employees table wherein you have a different columns. You need to know all of these columns because we use very extensively in writing the queries, and also what is the data type of these columns. What is a data type? Let's say to write the simple basic statements. So you know that select is a SQL command which we use to read the data from a single table or the multiple tables. Now let's say if I want to read the data from employees table, how do I read the data? So this is a query that you're going to write. Let's say select, and when you say star, that means it will retrieve all the columns. And in the from clause, you specify from which table you are reading the data. Let's say if I'm using the employees table, that means it will read all the columns from the employees table. I have close to 10 to 12 columns in the employees table. So if I want to execute this, so when I say select this statement and use F9, so it will give me all the columns which are present in the employees table in using it. So it basically gives me all the list of columns which are available here. So whenever you say star, it is giving you all the columns, but I don't need all the columns to be displayed in my query. So then what can I do? So it's basically what you do is you'll specify the list of column names to be created, list of column names to be retrieved from your table. So how can I specify the column names instead of reading all the columns from the employees table? So let's say if I want to read only the last name or job ID and the salary of an employee and the department ID of an employee. So whenever you want to read only the selective columns, whatever the columns that you want to read, that columns should be mentioned in the select statement. So what you're going to do, let's say I'll use a column name as a last name, and each column should be separated by comma when you're writing a select statement. Okay, last name. Let's say I want to read the job ID, right? And let's say salary is something that which you read the data from it. And let's say I want to even read the data or department ID column also. Let's say when you write a department ID from, let's say, employees table. So whenever you're writing a query, it's always a good practice to close that the query with a semicolon. So if you use a semicolon, it's basically, if you use a semicolon, it's basically that is says that the query is ended there. So when you try to execute this, whenever you're doing execution in the SQL developer, basically that you have to select that statement. Either you can use F9 to retrieve it. Now, what is the difference between the previous query and the current query that you have executed? So it's basically here you're selecting only whatever the required columns that are there, and here it is retrieving you all the columns. So each column should be separated. Now if you see, it is retrieving only the selective columns but all the rows from the employees table, right? So whatever the data that is present in the employees table, so basically we have total 107 employees who are present. It is retrieving all the data from that table. So this way you can select the required columns in the select statement. So select star means it will retrieve you all the columns from the table, and when you say that select required columns from the table, that is your specific columns, you can also do that. So there are some important things that you have to understand about the SQL. So is SQL is a case sensitive language? No, SQL is not a case sensitive language. So basically, even I did say yesterday, when you talk about SQL, either you can write them in the uppercase, lowercase, camel case, any case you can write it, that's a valid. But the data what is stored in the columns is a case sensitive. We'll talk about it in a while. So data which is stored in the column is a case sensitive. Column is a case sensitive. So is it necessary to write entire query in the single line? No, you can break the query into multiple lines. So whenever you're writing it, you can break the query into multiple lines, but you cannot split the keywords. It's something like this. Let's say if I'm writing FR in the first and then OM in the next, then I cannot do something like this. I cannot break the keyword into multiple lines. So keyword should be together. Whenever you are writing something, that should be together. You cannot break that into multiple lines. And whenever you're executing the query in the SQL plus, basically you have to always execute either with a semicolon or with a or by using a /. Now I'm going to show you how to connect to SQL plus. See, in my computer, basically I have installed Oracle client so that I can connect to SQL plus environment using this. So when you install Oracle client, this application development will appear something like this. And SQL plus is an environment where you can actually SQL plus is an environment where you can execute the Oracle queries. Let's say if I have to connect to this HR schema, it's basically if I want to connect to that HR, what is my database name? My database name is ORCL. I think I have used it as a ORCL server, I think ORCL or ORCL server. In my service name, I have used it like that. So when you say the password is HR, so it is now connected to HR schema. So how can I execute a query? Let's say if I want to read a department ID and the department name from the employees, so how would I read it? So if you go back to departments table, you have a department ID column as well as a department name column which is present here. So I want to read both of them from the departments table. So let me try to use it. Select, let's say, department underscore ID and department underscore name. Let's say from, so what is the table name? Departments. So whenever you are executing a query in the SQL plus prompt, basically that either you can use / to execute the query this way, this is a /, or you can use a semicolon. Anything is fine. Let's say if I have to execute using it, this will give me the list of departments which are available in the departments table. See, why we don't use much of an SQL plus in the real-time environment is because the user interface and the formatting of the data is pretty difficult here. Let's say if I use the query something called as select star from departments, so it's basically the formatting of the data is not proper. I mean to say even this looks better. Let's try to use select star from employees. Let's say if I'm using this, so basically for figuring out the data, it is very difficult and you cannot even format the data properly in the SQL plus environment. So that is the reason we don't use much of a SQL plus prompts in the real-time environment. That's why we are inclined more towards the using of the different tools. It's basically you'll use SQL developer, Toad, PLSQL developer, all those things. So this is one way of executing the query from SQL plus, and other way is that where I'm showing you how to write the select statement in the SQL plus and then using it. So this is a very basic query what we have written to retrieve the last name, job ID, salary, and the department ID of the employees. So next one, we'll talk about how to perform arithmetic operators on the query. See, basically you can perform the arithmetic operators only on the number and the date data type. You cannot basically perform the arithmetic operators on the, it's basically on the varchar columns. So you cannot add something like A plus 100 or B plus 100 or let's say last name column plus 100. So you cannot use arithmetic operators other than number and the date data type. So let's try to understand now how can we use arithmetic operators in the number columns. So let's say if you would like to calculate the annual salary of an employee. So how do you calculate the annual salary? So it's basically you have an employees table. So in the employees table, you have a salary column, and this is actually the monthly salary of an employee. So if you go here and go to the data, here you have the salary, which is 2,600, 4,400, 13,000, and all these are all the salaries of a monthly salaries of an employee. So how do you calculate the annual salary? It's basically the monthly salary into 12, which will give you the annual salary of an employee. Let's say I want to retrieve the last name, job ID, salary, as well as the annual salary of an employee. So how do you write the query? So it's pretty simple again. Select. So you're going to write the last name column, and you'd like to retrieve even the job ID. So I'll use it the job ID column, and let's say the salary column, which is a monthly salary, and you have the another one called as salary into 12. So which is going to be the monthly salary here. So monthly salary, and which it is there. So monthly salary, so I'm using an alias. Let's come back to this little later. Sorry about that. So salary into 12 from, let's say, employees. So when you try to execute the query here, when you try to execute the query, so this will give you the last name, job ID. So 2,600 into 12, it's basically 31,200. So this is how you can perform the arithmetic operation directly on a numeric column. So how I'm able to perform? Because salary is a number data type. So if you go to the column list and check what is this, this is a number data type. So that is the reason I'm able to perform the arithmetic operations on the salary column in using this. So let's say if I have to go with another type of statements, let's say if I want to calculate the, now I would like to write a query. I want to increase the monthly salary of an employee by 100 and then calculate the annual salary. Basically, my question is like, I want to increase, if the salary of an employee is 2,600, I want to increase by 100, which means the salary will become 2,700, and then I have to calculate the annual salary. So how do I do that? Let's say when you say, now you have a last name column and you have a job ID column, and I also have a salary. Basically, I want to increase the salary by 100. So salary by 100, when you do this, this will become the incremented salary, and I want to multiply that by 12. So what I'm doing is I'm incrementing the salary by 100 and I'm multiplying the salary by 12. So from, let's say, what is the table name? Table name is going to be employees table. So why I'm specifying only employees table here? Because all these columns are available in the employees table. I cannot use department because these columns are not present in the department table. So when you try and execute this one, so what is whether it is returning a correct result or not? Check it. Here 2,600. When you increment by 100, what will happen? So let's try to check this now. 2,600, when you increment by 100, it will become 2,700 into 12. What does it give? It should give 32,400. But what is the salary that it is giving? It is giving me 31,300, which is a wrong result. What is wrong with this query now? So basically, when you understand about the BODMAS rule, it's basically that which operator takes the precedence when you are using a multiple operators in the expression. So basically, the multiplication will take the precedence and then followed by the division, addition, and the subtraction. So basically, the arithmetic operators, when you talk about arithmetic plus, minus, comma, multiplication is represented as a star, and then the division, which one takes a precedence? So you have to always, in the SQL terms, first bracket will be evaluated. That means whatever you keep in the parenthesis, that will be evaluated, and you'll actually use the plus is your multiplication, followed by the division, and then addition, and then the subtraction will take place. So always, whenever you want to override the precedence of the operators, so you always have to use the within the parenthesis. Now I want this expression to be completed first before it gets multiplied. So how can I reframe the query to achieve my result? It's basically, yes, very good. So what you have to do is you need to actually keep this in the parenthesis and multiply. So when I'm keeping this in the parenthesis, what happens is that first this expression gets evaluated, then it will multiply by 12. So try to execute it, whether we are getting our desired result or not. See, what was your result? 32,400, and this I'm getting the 32,400. So basically, what did we understand using this query? You need to understand the precedence of the operator, basically the precedence of arithmetic operators when we are using a multiple arithmetic operators together in an expression. So this is how you can evaluate the arithmetic operators in a group. So that is the use of your operator precedence. This is how we use it. All right. So let's move on with the null value, and I'll take up your questions in case if you have any now. So what is going to be the next one? So what do you mean by the null value? So we heard about this. I mean, you might have heard about this. So what do you mean by null value? See, basically in the database terminology, when you talk about a null value, nothing. If there is nothing present in the column, then that is considered as a null. So you can call a null value as something which is unassigned, or you can call it as unavailable. There is no value. So see, when you talk about a null value, it is not a blank and it is not a space even. You cannot consider that as a blank and you cannot consider that as a space. It's basically when you are adding the data to the table, if you are not providing any value for that column, that will be treated as a null value. So null means there is nothing present in the column, then that is treated as a null. So let's try to look at the null value, how it will be presented. Let me execute a query from here. Okay. So I'm writing the query. So select, let's say, last name and comma, I want to retrieve the salary column and then the commission percentage. There is a column called as a commission percentage, which specifies how much percentage of the salary that the employee will receive as a commission. So from what is a name, that is your employees table. So if I use a semicolon and then execute, see here, if you see all these values where there is no value present, all this is called as a null. If there is nothing present in the column, that is called as a null value. So how can I copy this query? You can use ed, it will open up. Okay, for some reason the buffer is not stored, that's fine. Let's write the query here. So select, and you have a last name and you have a salary column and job ID and commission percentage column from what is the table name, that is your employees table. So try to execute this. When you try and execute this query, so this will give you the commission percentage as null. See, do not get confused here. When you say if it is displaying within the parenthesis null, that means is the null value is being stored in that column? No. Just for our understanding, your SQL developer, whenever there is nothing present in the column, it is displaying as a null. So you try to edit it and see there is nothing inside this. But if you try to edit this column, if there is a value, it is showing up. So it's basically if there is no value present, then that will be treated as a null value. Then that will be treated as a null. So if there is a value which is present here and that value is being represented here. So that is more on the null value. So we're going to learn very important thing here. So whenever you're performing any arithmetic operation on the null value, that will be evaluated to null. See, suppose when I say null plus 1000, it will be evaluated to null. When I say null minus 0 or anything, it will be evaluated to null. Let's say if I'm using null into 1000, it will be evaluated to null. Any arithmetic operation on the null value, basically that will be evaluated to null. So only the operator which works with the null value is a concatenation operator. You should never use a arithmetic operation on a null value. Basically it will get evaluated to null. So now let's go back to our employees table. Okay, I have a salary column which is nothing but the monthly salary of an employee, and you have another one is called as a commission percentage. It's basically the percentage of the commission percentage of an employee, how much percentage they receive a commission. Let's say now you got the requirement. Let's say your finance team asked you to generate a query wherein I want to calculate the monthly commission of all the employees, how much I'm actually paying to each employee. So how do you write the query? So it's basically you write it as select last name, comma salary, and I would like to even get the commission percentage. Let's say if I have to calculate the salary star commission percentage, basically you're trying to use that commission percentage from, let's say you have the employees table. So when you try and execute now, it will give you the commission. So observe the data present in the salary column as well as a commission percentage column. See what happened? For Null, the salary is 2,600, but the commission percentage is null. What happens null into some value? It will be definitely evaluated as a null. So if you try to see this, for all these records, it is being evaluated as a null because it cannot perform arithmetic operation on this. But for these records, check it, 14,000 into 0.4, which is equal to 5,600. So this is more about the 0.4. This is more on the 14,000 into 0.4, which is equal to 5,600. So this is how any arithmetic operation on a null value which will be evaluated to null. So that is performing an arithmetic, arithmetic operations on the null value. So let's talk about the aliases. Basically, how do we use alias? Alias is a very simple thing. See, basically whenever you write a arithmetic expression, what is happening in the header? Entire your expression is being displayed in the header. So how would you calculate? Basically, how can I replace this header value with some other name? Basically, I want to provide this as a commission. Let's say I would like to provide it as a COMM. See, alias is something that which can be provided in three ways. When you are writing a query, alias is nothing but the alternative name for a column that what you are providing. So alias can be provided in three ways. When you say last name, let's say I'm calling this as name, and I would like to, so this is one way. You can use a as keyword. You can use the as keyword and then provide the name column, and you can use the space and then provide the alias name, and you can also represent it as as. So in both the ways you can represent it. Either you can use a as keyword and provide an alias, and here also I provided it just by providing a space. Now this, let's say if I'm calling this as a commission, now observe the value that is being represented in the header. So when you try to use it, let's say you have a name column and the salary is being replaced as a SAL because this is an alias that I have provided. For a commission, I have, for entire this expression, I have provided that as a COMM, which means that is also a commission. So alias is nothing but an alternative name. So whenever you are using expressions or complex expressions, you can always provide an alias value so that that value will be displayed in your query. So alias name can be provided for a columns, or alias name can be provided even for a tables as well. So how to provide an alias name for a tables, that we will check probably in the next or a fifth chapter when we talk about the joins. Let's say what happens when I am providing my alias name, my alias word, whichever I am using, contains spaces. Now basically I'm trying to provide an alias for a monthly commission column. So how this works in using it? So when you say this, whenever you are providing an alias which contains spaces, do remember always you have to enclose that in the double quotes. So if you can make a note of this, if an alias word contains any spaces, that should be enclosed, in the double quotes, So this is how you provide an alias for a particular column. So this is how you represent the aliases for a query. So that will talk about the aliases. And one thing is that whenever you are representing alias within the double quotes, that is a case sensitive, which means, see the header here. When I try to execute this query, when you say that all these header names are being replaced in the name column and then the salary, and all these are all present in the, if you see, all these are all present in the uppercase, but if you see this one, it is present in the camel case. Whatever the case that I have provided here, the same value has been replaced here in using. So this is about the use of the alias word, alias within the double quotes. So that's how it works, right? All right. So before we step into the, this one, concatenation operator, so I would like to hear if you have any questions so far what we have discussed. We talked about how to write the basic select statement and how to use the arithmetic operators and what is a null value, and we also discussed about how to provide an alias column. So in using this, right? Any questions so far with the basic things what we have discussed? Right, all right. So the next one which we are going to talk about is a concatenation operator. So let's say, how does a concatenation operator works with this? Let's say, what if I want to get the empty table? So what do you mean by empty table? You don't want to retrieve the data? Empty table means without any rows. See, basically a table without data. You can write a query, but basically there is no use of it unless you're generating any formatting output. What happens is that you can write a where clause to do that. Let's say anyway, we'll learn the where clause. Just for your reference, I'm just trying to write the query here. So let's say if you're writing select star from employees, what it will do, now it will give you all the employees. Let's say if I write the condition as where 1 equal to 2. Anyway, we'll understand about where clause, how it is being used. So you can write it. It just gives you the blank header. You know that it will be never true. 1 equal to 2 is never true. So it just generates a header. Unless you are using this for a formatting, it's of no use. Anyway, for others, like, you need not to confuse, like how we are going to use a where clause, we will learn in the next chapter. So you can even generate a blank header without any data. This way you can write the query. NVL thing, anyway, we will learn them in the next third chapter. That time we'll discuss how NVL function works to convert the null value. Okay. So basically, a concatenation operator is a double pipe symbol. So what do you mean by concatenation? It's basically combining two strings is called as a concatenation. Let's say in the employees table, we have a first name and the last name which is present. So first name and last name I would like to concatenate and save that as a name column. And I want to also display the job ID and the salary. So how would you write the query? So we'll look at here how the concatenation operator works now. Let's say select. I would like to concatenate the last name and the first name column. Last name and the first name. Let's say I want to display this complete thing as a full name. I'm providing a space, so I'm enclosing that in the double quotes. Let's say salary column, salary, and you have a, let's say you want to even display the job ID from what is the table name? Employees table. So try to execute this, and when you use that, that will give you the, it's basically combining it, but you're not sure like where the first name is ending or last name is ending and first name is starting, unless, so whenever you want to append any character in between that, let's say I want to separate both last name and first name by the comma, so you can use another concatenation operator. One important and the basic thing is that whenever you use the whenever you use the character, that character should be enclosed in the single quotes. Let's say if I want to display this in the single quotes, so go here within the single quote, let's say I want to separate the last name separated by comma with the first name. So when you try and execute, so this will give you this. So last name comma this. Now see here, both last name and the first name are separated by the comma here. So you can use any character here basically to separate the last name and the full name. So if you see, all of them are separated by the comma. So that is the concatenation operator. So it's nothing but your two vertical bars just above the shift button in your keyboard. You'll have that. So that vertical bars, you can use it to concatenation operator. So suppose, let's say now my requirement is that we know there is a last name and the job ID. Basically, I want to display King is a president, or Dehan is a vice president, and Philip is a sales manager, something like. Basically, my requirement is that I would like to append is a character or is a word to my last name and the job ID. So how would I do that? So it's a very simple thing again. So whatever the word that you are using, last name, concatenation with, let's say you'd like to use this is a. So there is a something. So wherever you want to provide a space, after the character there is a space, and even after a there is a space which is present here, and concatenate it. And you want to join the job ID. So job ID, I would like to provide the alias as a employee details. Let's say if I use it as employee details from what is the table name which you are using, that is your employees table. So when you try to execute this, what the data will be displayed? It will display the output as Abel is a sales representative, Ande is a sales representative, Atkinson is a clerk, Austin is an IT programmer. Likewise, this data will be displayed. So this is how you will use the concatenation operator to append the string. So whenever you'd like to append the string, that you will use it. So there is one more thing that you have to learn is about the quotation operator. So what is the use of quotation operator here is, let's say you know that we enclose the string within the single quotes. What if a string itself contain a single quote, something like apostrophe? So let's say now I want to concatenate the string something like this. It's manager ID. That is a string which I want to concatenate. But if you see, my string also contains a single quote. So how would I handle this type of strings when I am using a concatenation operator? So how would I handle it? So let's try to use that with a quotation operator. I'll show you both the ways. There are two ways with quotation operator and without quotation operator. So how can we choose a markup delimiter? So let's say if I want to display this data, select department ID. So let me take out this to avoid the confusion. So department ID, and you want to concatenate the value its manager ID. So how would I handle it? Enclose that in the single quotes. Okay. Still, the string is not properly represented. If you see, string is not properly represented. So whenever you have a apostrophe, you add one more string to that. You add one more single quote to that. And let's say I want to provide a space here, and I want to provide a space. Basically, it's manager ID, and I want to display the department ID, or you can call it as a department name, and the manager ID. So basically, this will have department ID and the manager ID. So entire thing I would like to call in a alias as a department details from what is the table from which you are reading the data. It's nothing but your department table. So when you try to execute this, so this will give you the complete usage about it. Let's say administration and its manager ID, marketing and its manager ID, purchasing and its manager ID, IT and its manager ID, public relation, finance, accounting, treasury. So even see here you need to observe in your string itself you have a single quote. So how can I handle with the concatenation operator whenever I have a strings which contains a single quote? So this is one way of handling that. So what is another way? That is by using the Q operator. Q operator is nothing but the quotation operator. So Q operator. So how do you handle it? Let's say department name, and basically what you have to do, entire string you can use, you just need to write the string, and that string should be in the square parenthesis. So when you're using, that should be in the square parenthesis. Then you use a Q operator and enclose entire thing in the single quotes. So this is how it should be present. So let's say if I separate it and keep it separately. So if you look at it, let me convert into uppercase for a better visibility. Okay, so if you look at it, okay, now what I've done is I've enclosed that string which we have to convert in the square parenthesis, and I have used a quotation operator to do that. So when you try and execute, the data will be displayed something like this. It's a case sensitive. Basically, I think it's manager ID, and this also is there. So you can also use a quotation operator whenever you use whenever you have a string which contains the apostrophe. So this you can also try when you're practicing and check it. That is another way of quotation operator. So next thing is about the duplicate rows. So what do you mean by a duplicate? If a record which is having a repetitive value, that is called as a duplicate record. Let's say, let's read the data on a department ID column from the employees table. Department ID from employees. So when you see this, so it's basically 50 is being repeated, 20 is being repeated, and 90 is being repeated for multiple times, so on, and 60. So I have a duplicate values present in the column level in the department ID column. So how would I eliminate the duplicate records? So duplicate records can be eliminated by using a distinct operator. So how would I do that? You can apply a distinct operator on top of this distinct department ID from employees. So this, you can call this as a department ID column. Now see the here, do you have a duplicates here? It's probably eliminated the duplicate records. So is the distinct keyword act at the column level or at the row level? So now let's try to use this. Let's say distinct, let me show you another column, department ID, comma, job ID from employees. So when you try to use this, so this is a duplicate record. And if you go on, this is also a duplicate record. So how would I eliminate the duplicate record at the row level? Again, a distinct. So what I'm trying to say here is that when you apply the distinct operator, it basically eliminates the rows at the, it basically eliminates the duplicate records at the row level, not at the column level. So is this a duplicate record when you say 20 marketing manager and 20 marketing representative? No, this is not considered as a duplicate, because if you look at the row level, it's completely a different thing what you have. So this is more on the this is more about the duplicate elimination in a particular select statement. So whenever you want to eliminate the duplicate records, so that is about the using a distinct operator, you can eliminate the duplicate rows. All right. So any questions so far? We are actually done with the first chapter, that is how to write a basic select statement and how to use the distinct operator and the concatenation operator. So any questions on this before we step into the second chapter? I'll probably wait for one moment to see if you have any questions. All right. So the next one is about how do you restrict the data or how do you sort the data in using it. Basically, restricting and sorting the data, why do you require it, right? So this will, till this we have completed the first chapter. We're talking about the chapter number 2. Let's say whenever you have written a query, so either for calculating any of the data, so whenever you write it, what is happening? It is retrieving you all the records from that table. Basically from employees table, if you're writing, it is giving you all the records. So what happens if I want to read only the employees who belongs to department number 90? I don't want to read all the employees in the employees table. I want to read only the employees who belongs to department ID 90. So how do I write it? So you can write the condition as where department ID is equal to, let's say, 90. So always the where clause will come after the from clause. See, whenever you see that, it will always come after the from clause. So when you try to execute this and see the result, it will give only the data or only the employees who belongs to department number 90. I hope you're able to differentiate the result here. Basically, it is retrieving you only the records which are satisfying this condition, where department ID is equal to 90. So this is one thing which it is there. Let's say in the different way, how would I write the other way of writing? Let's say here we are comparing the number data type. So how would I compare the character and the date data type? as we understand, characters are case sensitive. Whenever you use a characters in the where clause, characters are case sensitive, and date is a format sensitive. So when you use it, date is a format sensitive whenever you use it. Suppose, let's say I would like, see here we have a employee called as a king. So where last name of an employee is being represented in the camel case. So when you say that, we understand that data is a case sensitive. So if I want to write a query where whose last name is king, so we know that we have an employee called as a king. I'm trying to write the value as equal to king. Does this query returns me the data? No. Why? What is the reason why it is not displaying the data even though we have a employee called as a king? It's basically that what we understand is that if you see, king is a name that is stored in the column level, but in the query level you are giving it as a cat, this one. So how does this work? Is capped this equal to this is a true? No, this is a false condition. So when you say that this is a false condition, it's a case sensitive. That's what we understand. When you say that since the data is case sensitive, you need to pass the input also in the same way what is being stored in the database. So how would I reframe this query in order to get the data? So since camel case is not equal to lowercase, you have to change it to the capital KING and try to retrieve the data from this. So it's basically, this is retrieving me the data because I'm passing the same input what is being stored. What in case if I don't know what type of case that is being stored in the database? So in that case, how to handle it? So it's basically, you need to make use of the functions like a lower function and upper function that we will discuss in the third chapter. So about that. So it is more about the, so you understand now why data is case sensitive, right? So basically when you try to use it as a lowercase KING, it didn't retrieve me the data, and when I passed capital KING, it is retrieved me the data in using this. So that is more about the strings and all this. So next thing that we are going to understand is about the comparison conditions. So basically, how will you use it? See, comparison conditions like equal to, greater than or equal to, not equal to, all these we can use it. And along with this, we also have some comparison operators like between and in, like, is, null operator, all this. So how would we go about the comparison operators? Suppose, let's say, now I have a requirement. I need to retrieve all the employees who are earning the salary greater than or equal to 10,000. So how would I write the query? So it's basically, you have to use the same select statements from employees where salary is greater than or equal to 10,000. So if you use it now, what happens? This query retrieves me the employees who are earning the salary greater than or equal to 10,000. So has it given you the 10,000 as well as a more than 10,000 also has been retrieved. So this is the way of determining the, another way of using your comparison operators. Here we have used only the equal operator. Here we are using the greater than or equal to. In the similarly, you can also use less than or equal to, not equal to, all the things you can use it. Suppose, let's say I want to find out the employees who are earning the salary between the 10,000 and 15,000. So how would I write it? So you have another operator called as a between and operator. So which you call it as 10,000. Sorry, let me write. So salary between 10,000 and 15,000. Now, question is that does this query will retrieve me the data who are earning the salary 10,000 and 15,000 also, or it will give me only the employees who are earning the salary from 10,001 to 14,999. So which way it works? So whether, see, when you use a between and and clause, it's basically that your lower limit and upper limit are included within the range, which means it will give me all the employees who are earning 10,000. At the same time, it will also give me all the employees who are earning the 15,000. So try to use this. Let's say that has it given me employees who are earning 10,000. Similarly, it will retrieve 15,000 also, but we don't have anybody who is earning a 15,000 in the database. So that is the reason it is not retrieving me any data in this 15,000. So that is how you can use another operator, that is a between and and. So always make a note, lower limit and upper limit are included within the range. Upper limit are included in the range. In using this. So next operator which we are going to talk about is a in operator. See, basically if you see the earlier query, when we talked about where department ID is equal to 90, then when you go and write, let's say now this query will retrieve me only the employees who are belongs to department number 90. What if I have to retrieve the employees belongs to 90, 10, 20 like that? So how would I do that? Where department ID in, let's say you have 10, 20, 90. So whenever you want to match the list of values, always you have to write the query in this way. So basically this will give you the employees who belongs to department number 10, 20 and the 90. So what if I have to retrieve the employees whose job ID is a president and the vice president? So how do you write that? So it's basically again is a simple thing. You can write the condition as where job ID in. So you need to write president is nothing but AD underscore PRES. So this value you have to use. Let me type in here AD underscore, and also if I have to get the vice president, AD underscore VP. So try to execute this. So this will give you the employees who are belongs to that job ID. So individual string should be enclosed in the single quotes. Basically you have a comma here and which will separate both of them. So that is the use of in value, right? So before talks about the like, let's talk about the is null operator. Okay. So let's say if I want to understand how many employees are not receiving the commission, basically you know the commission percentage column, and you want to understand how many employees are not receiving the commission. So let's say you have something called as a commission percentage from, let's say, employees where commission percentage equal to null. Can I write this? So what is wrong with this query? So we understand that you cannot compare anything with a null value. Here you're trying to use an equal comparison. Does this gives me the data? So it's a basic fundamentally wrong thing that we do is we should never compare any value with a null. Either it is a greater than, less than, equal to, anything. You cannot compare that. So if you try to use it, this doesn't work because basically it cannot evaluate the null value. So how would I understand, how would I retrieve the employees who are receiving the commission, who are not receiving the commission, which means whose commission percentage is null? I can write the condition here as is commission percentage is null. So when you try and execute, this will give you the data. This will give you all the employees who are receiving the commission as a null value. So it retrieves you the data that is your null. So how would I get, this is about the is null operator. So whenever you are comparing the null with something, you always have to use is null operator. Is null, not equal to null. Equal to null is fundamentally wrong. This is a wrong statement, wrong SQL. You cannot write this. So that's about the is null operator, how it will be used. Let's talk about another one is a like operator. So it's very important thing. Like operator is used for a pattern matching. It is used for a pattern matching. Means whenever you want to understand employees name starting with A, B, C, if you want to understand any pattern matching, it's like a grep or what do you call, if you know about Unix, like it's a grep operator in the Unix. It's basically for a pattern matching. So there are two wildcard characters that you need to know whenever you use a like. So one is a percentage. What is the use of percentage? It is used to match one or more characters. It can match either a single character or more number of characters in using this. More number of characters. And another one is your underscore. Underscore will just match a single character. It cannot match multiple characters. It will match only the single character. So percentage and underscore, what we call them as a wildcard characters. These are called as a wildcard characters. So how would we write it? Let's take a simple examples and understand how the like operator works. Basically, when you see the like operator, let's say I want to get all the employees whose last name is starting with K. I want to get all those. So how would I write the query? So basically, I need all the employees, commission percentage as well. May not be, and you don't require that. So where, let's say last name, like, so you have something called as a, let's say K percentage. I want to get all the employees whose name is starting with K. So when I give percentage here, it is nothing but it is matching a single character or a more number of characters. So when you try and execute this, it will give you the data. See, you have, these are all the employees who are having a last name starting with K. Yes. So similarly, let's say if I want to understand the employees whose last name is starting with K and ending with G. So I mean to say Z for goat. So how would I write the query? So it's basically that when you go and see the last name, so K percentage G. So that means this is used to match the more character. So it will give me the employee's last name starting with capital K and ending with lowercase g. So it's a case sensitive again. So when you see, you have only few employees who are using this. Similarly, let's say if you want to get all the employees whose last name is ending with R. So how do you write? It's nothing but the percentage R, right? So you can use it with a multiple approaches. So let's say percentage R is a lowercase. When you try to use, it will give you the employees whose last name is ending with R. So this is how we can use in implementing this. So that's more on the percentage. Suppose, let's say, if I want to understand how many employees have their second character in their last name as A. Second character. I'm not worried about the first character, whatever it may be. I'm worried about the second character. So how do you write it? Let's say, you know that underscore is something that which is used to skip it. Let's say you can use it as underscore, let's say A, and then percentage. What is the meaning of underscore here? It will skip the first character. It might be anything, A, B, A to Z, anything. So it will skip it. So it will give you now employees who's, see here, second character is A for all of them. So this is something about the underscore in using this. So this is more about the like operator, how you use it and how you handle the null values. Yes.
Percentage and underscore, what it is called?
Wildcard characters.
Wildcard character.
We'll call them as wildcard characters. So that is more on the comparison operators. So before we step into the logical operators, I would like to hear if you have any questions on this so far. I notice that there is no semicolon at the end. So is it okay if you forget to put the semicolon at the end? Yes. You can still execute the query, but it's always a good practice whenever you write it, you can use the semicolon at the end. It is not mandatory to keep the semicolon at the end of the query. But if you're executing the query from the SQL Plus environment, yes, you should use the semicolon at the end. Otherwise, you cannot execute the query. Good observation, yes. So what else? Any other questions? You need to be active and in understanding all these things, because SQL is a best, what do you call, good foundation to understand further on the Informatica Power Center, and even if you want to further go on to any other technology as well. So make sure that you are following the class, and if you have any questions related to, even though it is a silly thing, you can probably bring it to the notice. We can discuss that and then move on with the next one. Probably I'll take 5 more minutes to complete the logical operators, and then I'll take your questions in case if you have anything related to the training or anything related to all these things. We'll discuss that. So now we'll talk about the logical operators. So what are the different logical operators that we use in this one? So we use and we use or, and we use a not operator. And means all the conditions must be true. And means all the conditions must be true. And or means any one of the conditions must be true. Any of the condition must be true. Not means it's basically an opposite. If a condition is evaluated to true, then it will return a false. Returns true if the condition is false. Returns true if the condition is false. So now let's talk about what is the use of AND operator. See, basically now let's say you have a requirement. I need to retrieve all the employees who belongs to department number 50. So if that is the case, you can write straight away the query. Let's say salary. Let's say you would like to even fetch the department ID, and you call this as where department ID is equal to 50. Okay, this will give me all the employees who belongs to 50. It's straight thing. Out of all these employees, I need only the employees who are earning the salary more than 5,000. I don't want all the other employees. So how would I write it? So it's basically you need to use AND operator. AND means both the conditions must be true. So when you say that salary is greater than 5,000, it has to now give you only the employees who are earning the salary greater than 5,000. So it's basically department department ID is equal to 50. This condition is true for all the records, and if you see salary is also greater than this. So that is how you will use the AND operator. So how the OR operator works? Let's say if you write the condition as I want to retrieve all the employees whose department ID is equal to 90 and whose job ID is a sales manager. So how would you write it? So where department ID is equal to 90, or so job ID is equal to sales manager. When you say sales manager, it's basically SA underscore MAN. So that is a, so when you see this, try and execute and observe the difference. So why these records have been retrieved even though the department ID is not equal to 90? Because OR condition, right? So for these records, this condition is true, and for this records, this condition, 3 records, this condition is true. That means either of the condition must be true. So if both the conditions are true, then also it will return a record. So if you have a record where department ID is equal to 90 and job ID is sales manager, that record also will be retrieved. So either of the conditions or both the conditions must be true. And another way to use a not operator, let's say in the previous example, you have seen the query. Let's say when we talked about in operator, right? So we basically got this as if you wanted all the employees who belongs to department ID 10, 20 and 90, you have written this query. Now, if I have to write the query who are not belongs to these departments, it's basically you use a not in operator. Not in of these things. So try to execute this. So wherein you have all these employees who are not belongs to 10, 20 and 90. Do you have any employees who are belongs to that 10, 20, 90? No, it will not give you because you are using the not in operator to get the data. So can we use a combination of all these operators, and, or, and not? Yes. So whenever you execute, if you use and or not operators, which one takes the precedence? You also need to understand which logical operator takes the precedence. Let's talk about this example here. So let's say if you have now you have a requirement wherein you need all the employees who are belongs to job ID is sales representative or a president, and the salary is greater than 15,000. See, your requirement is that, let's write this query. So let me show you how this query works. Basically, I'm using where salary is this. So when you try to use this, what is the data that it gives you? It basically gives you employees who are belongs to sales representatives and employees who are belongs to basically the president. And out of all these employees, I want to get only the employees who are earning the salary greater than 15,000. So that is my requirement. So when I use AND operator, concentrate here, we are using both the operators together. Okay. So when you say salary is greater than 15,000, so try to execute this and see what happens. It is, see, I wanted the employees whose salary is greater than 15,000, but see this, it is giving me the employees whose salary even it is less than 15,000 also. What is the reason? So the basic thing is that here when you have a AND and OR operator, first AND operator takes the precedence. Basically it is executing this condition first, then the OR operator. So how can I override the precedence? Basically again by using a parenthesis. Whenever you want to override even the parenthesis at the logical level, so this we will provide in the parenthesis, which means it will try to give you the records. First this condition will get executed, then the AND condition. So logical operator precedence is first brackets will get executed, which is included in the parenthesis and brackets, then the NOT operator, then followed by the AND operator, then the OR operator. This is a precedence of your logical operators, how to use it. So that is more about the logical operator precedence and how we use it. Right. So I'll stop it here for today, and I want you to basically go through this. Today I'm going to send you the complete PPTs and whatever. So from whichever the channel